So yeah, we talked last lesson about the things that the judges use to score debaters. So I'm just going to pick 3 names at random and make you a debating team. So let's say the topic is, why is that yellow? I don't like yellow. So the topic is, should children own smartphones? So they're going to write the topic of the debate across the top of the form here. They'll write the date that the debate is getting, that the debate is happening on. So I'll just use today, which would be 13th of July, 2023. So the judges would each have 2 of these forms, one for the proposition team and one for the opposition team. And they would mark each team on one sheet, and they would then use that to score the whole team. So let's say that this is the pro team, and my teammates are going to be Kevin, Stella, and let's go Amy. So Kevin steps up first to make his arguments. And let me just say, I'd like to hope that he wouldn't stand there talking to the debate audience like that. So first of all, as they're listening to Kevin speak, they would listen to his organization and clarity. So they would judge Kevin on how he had prepared his arguments and how clearly he's able to talk to the judges and to the audience and to let them know what his point of view is. So they might say, okay, I thought Kevin was mostly clear and orderly in all parts of his arguments. He gets 3 points. Because we see Kevin is speaker 1, so I put a 1 in the box there. So then I would go down and say, okay, so how well did Kevin come up with reasons? Like, what are the reasons behind his argument? How good are they? And they might say, actually, most of Kevin's reasons were relevant and they supported his argument very well. So they might give him 4 points for that section. Because we see at the top there, the 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how many points you get for each criteria. And then they might say, ooh, so his arguments were good, but he didn't really give us too much evidence on this one. So Kevin can have 2 points for his examples and facts. And then at some point in the debate, when Kevin needs to give his rebuttals, he might need to argue back against a point made from the other team. And they might say, there were some effective counter arguments made, like most of the stuff the other team said he had an answer for. So they'd give Kevin 3 points there. And finally, his presentation style. So did Kevin's tone of voice match the arguments that he was giving? Or did the use of his gestures, was he expressive with his hands? Was his body language confident? Was he very enthusiastic to give his argument? And I might have a quick look at Kevin's body language now. I'd say Kevin's looking at the camera, interested in what we're talking about. He's paying attention. So I might then say, okay, Kevin, your presentation style, I'll give you a 3. That's a terrible number 1. That's better. So all style features were used most convincingly. So then Stella would get up and let's say her organization and clarity were exceptional. Her use of arguments was pretty good. I should be giving those 2s because Stella's speaker number 2. So Stella's organization was fantastic. Her use of arguments was pretty good. Her use of facts and examples. So her use of evidence, not bad. Her use of rebuttal was pretty good as well. And her style points, don't know why I did a 4 there because she's speaker number 2, but she gets 4 points for that. Finally, Amy comes up. Maybe her organization and clarity could have been a little better, but her use of arguments was exceptional. Her use of facts and examples was pretty good. Her rebuttal needs a little bit of work. And her presentation and style was mostly there. So now, once all of our speakers have spoken, we're going to go through and tally up the points. So we have, for the whole team, one score of 2, 1 of 3, 1 of 4. So that makes 9, 3, 4. That makes 11. 2, 2, 3 makes 7. 2, 3, 3 makes 8. 6 makes 10. So 9, 11 is 20, 27, 35. So that gives us a score of 45 points. And then to find the total, for some reason, they're going to multiply that by 5. So that looks like 225, if my maths is correct. Hopefully it is. So for this debate, the team of Kevin, Stella, and Amy scored a total of 225 points. And they do the same thing for the opposition team as they present their debates. And whichever team gets the highest score at the end here is the team that wins the debate. So that's how debates are generally scored. We'll take a look at the other forms of debate scoring in later lessons, but this is going to be the one that you'll encounter most commonly in a debate competition. So do we have any questions about how the debates are scored before we move into today's topic? Okay. Terrific. So if there's no questions, let's get started. Have a good one, dude. So that was just one of my housemates leaving to go out somewhere. So today's topic is team arguments in debating. So for your homework for this class, as well as scoring a couple of debates, I'm going to assign you a partner to work with over the weekend before Tuesday next week. So you're going to learn how to come up with arguments as part of a team. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So today's topic, like we said, is team arguments. And team arguments actually have an example Team arguments actually have an advantage in presenting arguments, because you're able to work with your teammates. So a quick little demonstration here. So when we argue as part of a team, so let's put so where am I here? So let's put the proposition here, opposition here. So we have our first speaker, second, third, first, second, third. So if we work just as 3 individuals, we have 3 arguments going out. Also, we have 3 sets of arguments going out. And depending on your skill, they can still be quite good. But let's say the other team, I'll draw these lines a little bit bigger. So we've got 3 individual arguments going out across, so going out to defend against the other team. They're just working separately, 3 people, same team, but they're not working together. Now let's say the other team makes their arguments. Let's see how we're making the lines cross over each other. What happens here is, I'll even do that again. So as speaker 1 makes their argument, they cast their argument out. As the second speaker then comes up to talk, if they work with their teammates and they figure out their arguments together, they can then join forces and create stronger arguments. I know my my diagram doesn't really demonstrate that fact, but working together, if we were to base these arguments, if we consider these arguments, the thicker the line, the stronger the argument, we see that the team that just works as just 3 individuals, they've just got 3 skinny lines worth of argument. But as the arguments work together, we see from that point on, those arguments start to get stronger and stronger, because you're using similar information and similar facts to your teammates. You're all arguing along the same line, so you're able to strengthen, give more information, and really just cover your side of the argument more fully. So hopefully now that I've squiggled the lines a bit more, that that diagram makes a bit more sense. We've got three thin arguments on one team, and 3 thin arguments that when joined together become stronger when used together. Yes, George, you may. So hopefully with my crazy diagram, you understand the point of working together as part of a team. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how each member of a team can make your arguments stronger. So as well as just making our arguments stronger, we also have the advantage of, this term might be a bit confusing, but it's called herd mentality. I'll type this in the chat box. It's called herd mentality. And basically what that means is that you can influence more people with more people. So if it's just me, for example, in a debate, and I'm on the team that they're not working together, Yeah, I can be pretty persuasive in my arguments, but it's going to be my arguments, and then my partner's going to be like separate. And then my other teammate's going to be making their separate arguments, and everyone's going to be like, yeah, but the people on their own team don't even make the same don't even make the same arguments. They're like, if their own teammates don't back them up and believe them, why should we? But then you get a really strong team all working together, and like if they're all working off of each other's arguments, they're all painting a really big picture of, yeah, if we're all painting a really big picture of the same issue, because there's three of us working together, we all believe each other, we all agree with each other, then we're going to have more of a chance to persuade the audience. There we go. Because if we're working together and we believe each other, oops, sorry, Andrew, I'll slow down a bit. So where did I start going a bit too quickly for you? I'll go back to that bit. Yes, herd mentality. See, you've all sent herd mentality, so we're all more likely to believe it because we've all done it. So, okay, so just going back to understanding why team from the start of the world. I don't think I can go back that far. I don't have a time machine. But yeah, so team arguments are a lot stronger than individual arguments. So we'll just go over this point again. And the reason that they are is because if you work together and you back your teammates up and you support each other's arguments, you're able to cover a lot more information about the same side of the argument than if it was just three individuals working on the same team. And the other, of course, the other benefit is herd mentality or pack mentality. It's that if you have more people doing something or saying something, then other people are more likely to agree and go along with it. And you're going to find that point. You're going to find that little trick is going to work like a lot in life. So I'm just trying to think of a good example. One will come to me later. But yeah, so with that pack mentality, working as a team will really help your chances, and it'll make your arguments like 10 times stronger. I don't know how it works, but working with teams can make your influence a lot stronger. So next, I want to go through and talk about how you would argue as part of a team. So what is a really good strategy to working as part of a team? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share this whiteboard here. Very good, Andrew. So first of all, let me just break down an argument for you. So let's say I sent an example somewhere. Hum. What's hum? Ah, perfect. Oh, like, got it, got it. Normally we wouldn't write the U because that changes it to hum. So we just write a couple of M's, a H, and then a couple more M's. So because there's no vowel sounds to that. Okay, so the debate topic will be, should schools offer more sporting programs to students? So we have our topic that we are debating. We then have our motion. So the motion would be, this house believes that schools should offer more sports to students. So that's the motion here. So let's write that. Topic, motion. So now we have our motion. We know what type of arguments each team is supposed to be making. Hum. Hang on. But the opposite of that, or we could even say, aha. So, very good, Rio. So now we have our motion, hom. This is just getting stranger now. So now we come to our individual arguments. And this is where I think there has been some confusion in how some of you are writing your arguments currently, but hopefully this will clear it up. So the proposition need to look for a number of points or a number of different arguments to make. So the proposition may make arguments like 1. Playing sports is good for students' physical health and well-being. So that is one argument. So that might be one of the arguments that one of the speakers makes. A second argument might be students learn to cooperate and develop team skills by playing sport. And so that would be the subject of another argument. And 3 would be exercise helps us concentrate in class. So we now have 3 separate arguments here, and each of these would require research, evidence, and a nice well-written teal paragraph about each of these things separately. So we don't want to, so we don't want to provide too many reasons per paragraph. We want to keep it to 1 reason per paragraph. And then that requires us to, obviously we now know how to write a teal paragraph. But yeah, each issue, we should be able to clearly state what our belief is, expand on that to go into more detail, provide some evidence that backs our argument up, and then tie it all up in a bow at the end with the linking sentence. And then we come over to the opposition side of the argument. And so the first opposition argument might be students are busy. Sport would take time from study. So that's our first opposition argument. Our second one might be not all students like sport. Forcing them to play might make them, dare I say it, I won't, I'll say dislike. So not all students like sports. Forcing them to play might make them dislike sport more. And who knows, that child might have gone on to enjoy playing tennis or doing weightlifting later in life. But because they were forced to play sports as a kid in school, they just came to just completely dislike sports and never really want to do them again. And let's check the chat here. I've gotten a few messages. Too much exercise. can make students tired. Okay, so we see there throughout my horrendously messy writing that we now have, so 3 separate issues, each for each team, which would all require them to, and so each of those arguments would require its own, its own argument, basically, its own paragraph to be written, its own research to be done. Very good, Tom. Herd mentality. So I'll save this. So yeah, so hopefully you're seeing now that with your teal paragraphs, you can't, the 2 things you want to avoid would be trying to come up with points of view for both sides of the argument. So I've read a few paragraphs that have been like, I think that, I don't know, for example, I think that school uniforms shouldn't be mandatory. And then they'll go on and they'll list a whole bunch of great reasons why students shouldn't have to wear uniforms. And then in the middle of that paragraph, they'll write, but on the other hand, I think school uniforms can be good for these reasons. And you read that and you're like, oh no, you've just undone your brilliant arguments. So make sure you stick to one side of the argument. And the other thing you want to avoid is mentioning more than one argument per paragraph. Because if you mention more than one per paragraph, then you've just got 2 points that you're half making and no points that you're actually completing. So yes, very good, Tom. Herd mentality. Oh, I'm going to regret teaching you guys that one, I think. Oh, goodness. Yes, Kevin, herd mentality. So, goodness gracious. So, the next thing I'd like to do, oh God, now Stella's even playing around with the capitalization of it. Herd mentality. Oh, that's me thinking Stella's making fun of us, not us making fun of Stella, by the way. So the next thing that I want to talk about is a good strategy for, oh gosh, we're just getting louder and louder now. See, guys, you made Andrew sick of the world. Stop it. Stop it. So the order of the speakers, first of all, is we have the 2 teams. So we've got proposition and opposition. And we have first, second, third, first, second, and third. So, because the propositions support the motion, no fourth. Usually debate teams are just 3. I think in some special cases it can have 4 or 5, but for like 99% of the time, I believe there's only 3 speakers on a debate team. Very good, Luna. Students must choose and be willing. So, because our proposition team agrees with the motion, they step up and make their argument first. So, we have our first proposition speaker goes up first. Next, actually, who do we think gets up next? Second for the proposition or first for the opposition?
First for the opposition.
Very good. So the second person to speak is, yes, Tom, the quadrillionth speaker. So the second person to speak Good job, Amy. Good job. So the second person to speak is the first team member of the opposition. And then we get second for prop. Whoop. What am I doing? Then we have second for the op. Third for the prop and third for the op. So what ends up happening here is both teams kind of end up with an advantage. So the advantage for the proposition is that they're the very, very first team to get to speak. So if they can create a strong enough argument with their first speaker, that might just be enough to keep building a stronger case with each speaker that goes next. And you just create such a strong rolling current of an argument that the opposition just never really get a chance to speak, or they never really get a chance to make a good enough point to beat you. But the advantage of the opposition is that they're the very last speaker to speak in the debate. So in a way, they get the final word. So they get one final chance where the proposition can't come back and rebut them for anything. So they get that one chance to really make their case as strong as possible. So now we've gone through all of that, we can actually have a look at what each of the team members is supposed to be doing. Well, it might not necessarily be a stronger argument, but people can be lazy sometimes. So, and in this sense, I'm referring to the audience and the judges. They might be a bit lazy. So if they're just kind of sitting there and there's been that much said to them, the last thing that anyone says is probably what they're going to remember the strongest. So if you can get your final speaker on the opposition to make a really strong point, then that might just be enough. Yes, Tom, herd mentality. That might just be strong enough to, yeah, that might just be strong enough to sway the debate in your favor. Thank you, Stella. Very thoughtful of you. Give Tom, give Tom some medication so he calms down. So let's have a look at the order of speakers. So let's go first proposition. I'm getting worried here. What are you guys talking about? So, first proposition team, what is their job? So it is their job to present the team line. Do we remember that term from our vocabulary sheet? So it is the first proposition speaker's job to introduce the team line. So when the first proposition member Oh my goodness. Why are we talking about how many pills to give our classmates? This is ridiculous, guys. You guys are being crazy right now. So, our first proposition speaker presents the team line. That means they run the audience through all of the points that the team is going to be making. So they will actually let the audience know what their point of view is ahead of time. So from here, why is Stella getting dizzy? Is that from all the medication you guys have been passing around? Stop it. Yes, Tom, herd mentality. I had no idea you guys would take that so literally and start acting like a bunch of crazy farm animals. So, as well as presenting the team line, it is also the first proposition speaker's job to introduce the motion and the team's position. Okay, I would like to revise Andrew's submission for the law. So, new law, ban the word herd mentality from use by anyone except me. I may need to use it to explain a concept in class. So, back on topic, guys. Yep, Tom's going to jail. I'll send the police around after class so I can take him to his prison cell. So, first proposition speaker, they present the team line. Stop it, Tom. Enough is enough. So they present the team line. They introduce the motion and the team's position. And their last job is to present strong arguments, strong opening arguments, and catch the audience's attention. So that is what the first proposition speaker needs to do. And next lesson, we're going to go over all of these positions. Yes, thank you, Stella. You were helpful. So we're going to go over all of these roles in our next class, but now it's just like a basic outline. So we've got what our first proposition does, and now number 2, who is our first opposition speaker, takes the stage. So the first thing that the first opposition speaker must do is they have to rebut the first affirmative speaker's arguments and introduce the main points of the opposition. So they need to rebut the first proposition's arguments. They need to clearly state their own team's arguments. And they also need to start to pick holes in the proposition's arguments. So we see already just in these first two speakers, we're already starting to get quite an interesting conversation start to happen. So we've got the first proposition speaker. You can check the chat, I'm a bit worried. So we already see quite an interesting conversation starting just from our first two speakers. The first proposition needs to come in and present their team line, let the audience know what their team will be arguing. They introduce the motion and their team's position, and they present strong opening arguments to catch the audience's attention. So that's what I was talking about with the proposition's advantage, is that they get to speak first. So they get to make the first impression. Following that, we've got our first opposition speaker, and their jobs are to rebut the first speaker's arguments, try and pick holes in them. We've got, counter argue and come up with better points. Then we clearly need to state their own team's arguments. And finally, they do need to start picking holes in the proposition's line of arguments. So yeah, we've already got quite an interesting conversation starting to happen. Following those speakers, next up comes the second affirmative. So number 3, second proposition speaker. And the role of the second proposition speaker is to reinforce, so make stronger their own team's arguments. So, first job, I can see the sentence right in front of me, but it just looks so foggy to me for some reason. So the first job is they want to make their team's arguments I made it fit. Oop. Arguments stronger. They want to build with more arguments and provide more evidence. So that's quite an important job, because they've got to take the good thing that their first speaker did and build on it, make it better, make it stronger. And the second thing they've got to do, they must respond to the rebuttals and counter arguments made by the first opposition speaker. So you see a strong foundation was laid down by the first proposition speaker, and it's being built upon now by the second proposition speaker. And after the second proposition speaker comes the second opposition speaker. And their job, first of all, is to counter the arguments of the previous speaker. So this guy up here. So they need to counter argue the points made by second prop. So that's the first thing they need to do. Counter the arguments made by the previous speaker. Next, they need to challenge the arguments made by the affirmative team. So yeah, that's the next job they need to do. Challenge the arguments made by the proposition team. And the way they do that is they need to provide better arguments of their own. So that might be introducing evidence that disproves or that proves the other team wrong. Or that might just be being able to just completely just say something and just have that argument completely negated, just doesn't even matter anymore. And finally, the second opposition speaker needs to continue the team line. So they need to make sure that they keep arguing the same points or arguing along the same line as their teammates to just keep making their arguments stronger and stronger and stronger. So now we see how the second proposition and opposition speakers work. Let's finish up with number 5, third proposition speaker. So the third proposition speaker has 2 important jobs, or 3 important jobs actually. The first is they need to summarize everything or every argument their team has made. So the third speakers don't actually, so the third speakers don't actually make their own arguments. They summarize everything that their teammates have said. So they are the last chance for the audience and the judges to remember what their arguments were. So after summarizing every argument their team has made, the third proposition speaker, no, it is 2 jobs. So, and the other job that they do, I'm confusing how I've written my own notes here. So the third affirmative speaker's second job is to provide a strong conclusion and to leave a lasting impact on the audience. So make the audience remember your team. So we see here the third proposition actually has quite an important job, because now is when the opposition team has their advantage. So sixth and finally is the third opposition. And their two jobs, very similar. So so their job is very similar to the third proposition speaker. And their first job is to, one, summarize every argument made by their team. And they also want to try one last attack on the proposition's argument. And their second job, let me make that look like an E, just made that look so much worse. And the third negative speaker's second job is, again, provide a strong conclusion and make the audience remember you. So that's how each of the team members interact with each other. So your homework, and I'm going to assign teams. So I'm just going to quickly write everybody's name down on a sheet of paper. So I've got Kevin, John, Stella, Luna, Andrew, George, Rio, Tom, or should I say Mr. Herd Mentality, and Amy. Okay, so I'll post this in, it is 12:03. You get to go have lunch now, or have your nap now, whatever it is you do at midday. So tomorrow, I'll send your homework in the Zalo group, but basically I'm going to assign you a teammate from this class, and you're going to have to work together over the weekend to come up with a team line. I'll give you all of the debate topics. I'll give you, so I'll give you a debate topic, and you need to discuss with your team, and you both need to write down a few possible arguments and who would make those arguments. So I'll send some more instructions in the chat as well, but I want you guys to think about how you could make your arguments the strongest and what order you could put your arguments in. So with that being said, I'll send your homework to the Zalo group now. So see you guys next week. I'll see some of you tomorrow. No, not forever. See you guys.
Goodbye, teacher.
Goodbye, teacher.
Goodbye. Thank you for a great class today.
I'm glad you. Bye.
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 Bye.